News on Buddy Matthews signing with AEW and Impact Wrestling's attempts at signing Matthews prior to his AEW arrival. We have some updates when it comes to the Ring of Honor storyline when it comes to Impact Wrestling. Plus, Moose is going to be defending the Impact World Championship at an upcoming independent pro wrestling show. All this and more in today's Impact Wrestling News. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into today in the world of Impact Wrestling, so let's start off talking about Buddy Matthews. Now, Buddy Matthews, of course, made his debut this past week on AEW Dynamite. He has signed with All Elite Wrestling and now is a member of the House of Black faction with Malachi Black and Brody King. Now, this is an interesting one, and I know some people will be saying, but why are you starting off talking about AEW in an Impact Wrestling news video? Well, the reason I'm talking about it is because there was a lot of speculation and a really strong pursuit of Buddy Matthews from Impact Wrestling last year. So why didn't he sign with the company? Why didn't Buddy Matthews go to Impact Wrestling? Why has he now gone to AEW instead? Now, Fightful Select are reporting that Buddy Matthews, of course, made his debut of AEW last week. He's been well received by his new colleagues. Now, it turns out Buddy Matthews had discussions with AEW as far back as the fall of last year, but only debuted last week with the company. During that period of time, Matthews competed for New Japan Pro Wrestling, MLW, PWG, Battleground Championship Wrestling, among other companies. Now, Impact Wrestling reportedly did make overtures to Buddy Matthews, but he never appeared for them. Now, we don't specifically know why Buddy Matthews didn't come to terms with Impact Wrestling or why the deal didn't happen, etc. But Buddy Matthews ultimately has signed with AEW over Impact Wrestling, which I think, to be honest, is a big blow for Impact. I think that he was one of those names that when he was released by WWE last year, along with the likes of, he was a part of the group that was with Braun Strowman, and then eventually Bray Wyatt came a little bit after that. But Impact Wrestling made a strong play. They made strong plays for Braun Strowman, they made strong plays for Buddy Matthews, and they made strong plays for Bray Wyatt, and all three have not arrived in Impact Wrestling. Buddy Matthews is now in AEW, Braun Strowman's in the Control Your Narrative promotion, whatever that is, and Bray Wyatt's taking a break from pro wrestling. So I think it's a bit of a big blow, because I think that would have been a really big deal for Impact. If they were able to get all three, or at least one of them, that would be a wow. Impact Wrestling, that's a big statement by the company. They've really signed a big player there, but ultimately it hasn't happened. Now, obviously, Impact Wrestling's roster is still fine. In lieu of not being able to sign Buddy Matthews, Braun Strowman, Bray Wyatt, etc., they've still been able to pick up a load of new signings. They've just signed a bunch of people from Ring of Honor as well in the Honor No More faction, so I'm sure they're fine there. But I think it's interesting, and that's my point that I speak about a lot here on the channel when a talent does get released by WWE, and I say, well, AEW is probably the favorite over, say, Impact, because if AEW comes calling, mainly for male talents, I would say. It's different when it comes to female talents, in my opinion, because I think if you're a female talent coming out of WWE, you can look at AEW and say the platform's bigger because the TV is much bigger in terms of a wider audience competing in front of more people. Maybe the money's higher as well. But the opportunity is that there in comparison to Impact Wrestling. That's a bit different. When it comes to a male talent, a lot of the time, you've got big TV exposure with AEW. You're competing in mostly sold out arenas, big events. You can still take independent dates, and you can still work for companies like New Japan Pro Wrestling, etc. That's tough to turn down, and I think Impact Wrestling are struggling with that. Now, I've said this as well in the past, Impact Wrestling are fine financially. They can offer big money. It's just a case of the platform being big. But nevertheless, Buddy Matthews didn't go to Impact Wrestling, and I think had Ring of Honor not shut down and were Impact Wrestling not able to sign all of these people from Ring of Honor that they have and will continue to do so, I think that would have been slightly different. But nevertheless, Buddy Matthews decided to go to AEW, even though Impact Wrestling made strong overtures towards him. But that's not to rule out that he might not appear there in the future. I really did feel that Buddy Matthews competing in the X Division would have been great in Impact Wrestling. Him facing off against the likes of Trey Miguel, competing in Ultimate X matches would be awesome, but also transitioning into a main event scene, he could absolutely 100% have been Impact World Champion. Is he going to be a World Champion in AEW? Not in the foreseeable future. Who knows what can happen in a couple of years? I don't know how long he signed for, but in the foreseeable future, the answer would be no. Could he have been an Impact World Champion in the close future if he'd come to Impact? Yes. but people make their decisions either way. Now, speaking of Ring of Honor, speaking of the Impact Wrestling Honor No More storyline, it's a really interesting story, this, because PCO, former Ring of Honor star, now signed to Impact Wrestling, part of the Honor No More faction, he's revealed that he was aware of this Ring of Honor invasion of Impact Wrestling storyline for at least a month prior to the debut at the Hard to Kill pay-per-view in January. Now, as part of the Honor No More group, PCO made his return to Impact Wrestling at the Hard to Kill pay-per-view in January. He told the Front Row Material podcast that he was well aware of the plans for their arrival for at least 1 month. He said, quote, I think that one great thing about this company, Impact Wrestling, is that everybody knows how to keep a secret. So the arrival to Impact Wrestling was planned, but not a word came out until that night that it was revealed. Which is good, because I knew at least a month before I started, so it was excellent. Now, he's commented also on his time in Impact thus far and touched on the cumulative amount of experience that exists in the locker room and in the company. He mentioned Lance Storm, Gail Kim, D'Lo Brown, and listed several talents who spread that knowledge. He said, quote, well, there's a lot of veterans in that locker room. There's a lot of also producers with a lot of experience, so, I can bring my 2 cents. But, you've got so many guys that are veterans there. Lance Storm just came back to the last TV tapings. He's just one of them, but each and every one of them are super knowledgeable. They know the business, whether it's D'Lo Brown, Gail Kim, goes on and on and on. You got so many guys, Tommy Dreamer, or Rhino, Chris Sabin, Eric Young. I mean, there's so many. There's a lot of veterans, So again, I think it's interesting, very interesting that PCO is saying, look, whilst it might have come off that it was very last minute that this Ring of Honor faction appeared in Impact Wrestling. Now, this was planned right from the beginning, and that does line up with reports we've heard in the past when it comes to some things in Impact Wrestling. We have heard that when people get released by companies, or when, for instance, Ring of Honor shut down, Impact Wrestling will call them that day. They will not wait, and sometimes that's how they get the jump on people like AEW or other places, that they call them that day and say, look, we just heard this, we just saw it online, do you want to come in, do you want to work a schedule? You don't have to have a contract, you can see how you feel, it's very loose here, and that can happen. So I think credit to Impact Wrestling for being so quick and proactive, because if they're saying that he knew about a month before that these people were going to be coming in to Impact Wrestling, that pretty much means when the news came out the Ring of Honor was shutting down, Impact Wrestling called them that day. I think January to December. That's how quickly that happened. So I think that speaks volumes. And I think it goes to show that everything in Impact Wrestling is very fluid when it comes to storylines, right? They might have had things planned out for the future, but I suppose the benefit of their taping schedule being every 2 weeks now is basically they're just okay, we'll get to this point, and then when we come back to the next set of TV tapings, we'll reevaluate it. We can take the storyline anywhere we want. We can add new things in. Things are very much in flux. And I think that's the case with this Honor No More storyline. So you could also argue as well, I suppose, that with PCO saying, yeah, I knew exactly what was going to happen way in advance, maybe the logic then is that this is actually planned out quite a bit. And they know exactly where this is going to go for the next month, 2 months, or however long this Honor No More storyline goes on for. I mean, I think there are a lot of things that are a bit up in the air with there. I think they've kind of, especially if you watch the last couple of Impact Wrestling episodes on television, specifically the one the last Thursday, I think they're kind of setting up that Josh Alexander would be the one to come back and kind of save, if you will, Impact Wrestling, considering he was the one that was sent home. Eddie Edwards referenced him in his promo, his explanation promo and all that kind of stuff. The issue is we don't know if Josh Alexander is going to sign a contract with Impact Wrestling and come back to the company. I liken it to when Christian Cage left Impact Wrestling in 2009. The storyline they were doing was Main Event Mafia versus TNA Frontline at the time, and the rumor was that there was an angle on television that wrote Christian Cage off. The Main Event Mafia attacked him, and they offered him to come into the faction. He said no. They attacked him, and that was him sending him away to WWE. But at the time, the rumor was that basically if Christian Cage had decided to stay with Impact, he would be the main rival to the Main Event Mafia. He'd be the main leader of the TNA Frontline. Ultimately, he went back to WWE. I think we're in a similar situation with Josh Alexander now. I think it's a case of he's been written off television. He's been sent home by Scott D'Amore, and now it's up to him whether he re-signs with the company. He's trying to get the situation with his green card and his visa sorted out and all that kind of stuff too. if he re-signs with the company, he'll be the main rival and probably the savior of Impact Wrestling. He'll be the one to save Impact from Honor No More, and eventually he'll win the Impact World Championship. He'll be the one to beat Moose for the title, because that's the storyline. Because, of course, Moose screwed him out of the title at Bound for Glory. But the issue is they don't know if he's going to re-sign or not. So I think they're kind of playing that one up in the air by now. Otherwise, I do look at the remaining roster and I say, who's going to be that one to sort of, take the faction down? And I don't know. I don't have the answer to that one. So that's certainly very interesting. But it's also fascinating to know that they had this planned out way in advance. And I think that's very interesting. Speaking of the World Championship, Moose is going to be defending the Impact World Championship at an independent pro wrestling event. Wrestling Revolver announced that Impact World Champion Moose will be defending his title against Speedball Mike Bailey at their next event on April 16. Moose tweeted about his upcoming title defense. He tweeted, quote, "God versus Karate Kid, what a joke." Mike Bailey also commented on the upcoming match. He said, quote, "Coming for that bout." Now, of course, Moose captured the Impact World Championship from Josh Alexander at Bound for Glory on October 23rd, 2021 by cashing in his Call Your Shot Gauntlet match contract. A week ago, he successfully defended the Impact World Championship against W. Morrissey at No Surrender. Before Wrestling Evolver's event, Moose is scheduled to defend the title against Heath on the March 5th show Impact Wrestling Sacrifice event. So, would imply Moose is going to win that one. It must be said, which I said is going to be the case. Look, I spoke before when it comes to the Moose Heath match at Sacrifice. That is a massive opportunity for Heath, not to win the title at that event, because he's not going to. He's not going to win the title at that event. But what it is an opportunity for Heath is to prove that he belongs in that main event picture in Impact. If he has a match that people talk about, if leading up to it he does some great promo work and he gets some momentum going behind him, then the Impact Wrestling officials and Scott D'Amore and all those kind of people, the creative team, might go, actually, you know what? Maybe in the future, because we don't know who's going to be the person to defeat Moose for the title here. We spoke about this the other day. Moose has got a torn labrum. Eventually, he's going to drop the title and he's going to have to take some time off. I look at the roster right now and I go, who is the guy, who is going to be the next guy to defeat Moose for the Impact World Championship? Whether that's Slammiversary or Bound for Glory, whenever it is. I look around and I don't know. And that's a really interesting opportunity, because I think a lot of people would say, if I was on that roster, I'd be like, man, there is a space there. We need a top babyface in this company right now. The heart and soul of Impact Wrestling just turned heel in Eddie Edwards. Josh Alexander, his contract's expired. There is a spot there for a top babyface. And if I'm a mid-card babyface, I'm looking at it going, I could fill that spot eventually. So whilst Heath isn't going to win the Impact World Championship against Moose at Sacrifice, that is an opportunity for him to prove to those in charge, okay, in the future, maybe we go with Heath. Maybe he can be an option for us in the future. So it's a massive opportunity for him, but he's not going to win. And I think the fact that Moose is set to defend the title after Sacrifice goes to prove that. But as to who that person would be to eventually defeat Moose, I have no idea. I really don't, and I think that's a really interesting proposition. Let me know who you think. Who do you think that would be? I mean, I think of possibly Trey McGow, maybe, Jake something. That there is a spot there. There absolutely is a spot there for someone to step up. Maybe eventually it would be W. Morrissey. We know W. Morrissey's in contract negotiations with the company. Maybe it'll be Rich Swann again. There definitely is that spot. And maybe it's someone that's yet to debut in the company. Maybe it could be a new signing. Who knows? Finally, we have a match announced for Impact Wrestling's episode on Access TV this coming Thursday, because Impact Wrestling has announced that Steve Macklin will face Eddie Edwards on the March 3rd episode of Impact Wrestling on Access TV. As noted, Eddie Edwards betrayed Team Impact during the prior Saturday's No Surrender event. He recently took to social media to confirm that he, quote, never turned his back on anyone. Edwards tweeted, quote, "I said my piece. That's all there is to it. I got my reasons. Don't tell me what you would have done or what I should have done, because you've never been in my shoes. I didn't turn my back on anyone. Hashtag honor no more." So Eddie Edwards is living the gimmick on social media, as he should. Below here is an updated lineup for Thursday's episode. We've got the Bullet Club versus Violent by Design versus GOD, which should be a great match. We've got a Knockouts Championship #1 contender match between Tasha Steelz and Chelsea Green. We've got Jonah basically squashing Johnny Swinger, and we've got Cassie Lee versus Madison Rayne, and we've also got that aforementioned Eddie Edwards versus Steve Macklin match. So we've got a loaded show of Impact Wrestling on Access TV, and I'm certainly very interested to see, well, we know what's going to happen, but certainly interested to see how it plays out on television. And I'm sure there are some things that we don't know yet that are going to be broadcast on Thursday as well. So Exciting stuff in the world of Impact Wrestling. So be sure to smash a like on the like button, guys. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Plenty of Impact Wrestling news coming in the days and weeks, I guess, as we build up to Sacrifice and as we build up to Rebellion. So we've got some really exciting Impact Wrestling stuff coming up on the horizon. Thank you very much for watching and tuning in, and I'll speak for you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.